A reading from Luke's account of the Gospel in the 20th chapter. Some Sadducees, those who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked him a question. Teacher, Moses wrote for us that if a man's brother dies, leaving a wife but no children, the man shall marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married and died childless. Then the second and the third married her. And so, in the same way, all 7 died childless. Finally, the woman also died. In the resurrection, therefore, whose wife will the woman be? For the 7 had all married her. Jesus said to them, those who belong to this age marry and are given in marriage. But those who are considered worthy of a place in that age and in the resurrection from the dead, neither marry nor are given in marriage. Indeed, they cannot die anymore, because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. And the fact that the dead are raised, Moses himself showed in the story about the bush, where he speaks of the Lord as the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all of them are alive. This is the word of God, the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
This is one of those fun scripture passages. If you think about what Luke has conveyed through the 19 chapters that preceded this lesson, there's this sense of presence, that God is present, that the law, that the scriptures themselves are present with us, not as a collection of ancient stories or simple tradition, but as a living, breathing entity. Because we who are reading it and hearing it are alive. The dead have no reason to care, have no way of appreciating what you have just heard. Now, in Luke's account, up to this point, there's been this continual journey of Jesus and his disciples to what we would later call Holy Week. Now, he gets to this point, and you know some of the stories, I'm sure. And there were miracles, there were healings, there were feeding, there was a little bit of controversy here and there. But he gets to Jerusalem. He's already been accepted and acknowledged by his disciples as being a good, holy man, a rabbi. Man. Paul Harvey used to say, now, the rest of the story. I think there's a few of you old enough to remember. Jesus has had encounters with Pharisees. They weren't just, some translations call them lawyers, some call them legal experts or religious scholars. That was true, but they were also people who were devout. They were hungry for every nugget that's contained in the scripture. But they weren't the only ones. Jesus encountered Romans. He encountered Samaritans. He encountered Egyptians. gets to Jerusalem that last week, and he encounters someone. Well, this wasn't the first time he was in Jerusalem, so he had met Sadducees before, but this is the first time that they're lifted up as someone to be taken seriously. Now, the Sadducees, these were people who thought the Pharisees were kind of looped and fuzzy about their faith. The Sadducees, these were the true believers, or so they thought. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? And there was a group that thought the Sadducees were kind of left wing, but we'll get to those. That's another sermon. But the Sadducees, these were people who thought that God, the one God, had spoken directly to Moses, and through Moses' quill and parchment wrote the first 5 books. And you know what they are? Genesis, okay. Exodus. Okay. What comes next? The Sadducees said nothing. Nothing came after the final stroke was put in Deuteronomy. That God had said everything worth saying. Now, you can imagine that that had a certain comfort. I mean, there's not commentary, there's not stories, there's not history, there's not poetry, none of it. Here are the words of God that are intended to direct your steps. That's pretty good. And so they looked at everybody else, all the prophets, all the Psalms of David, all of the histories of the kings, and said, whatever that is, it's not of God. And so this idea of resurrection, the Pharisees accepted. The Sadducees said, God does not say you will have a second life. The Sadducees said, this is it. Get it right. Because if you get it wrong, you don't want to know what nothing is like. Because nothing is bad. So they come up to Jesus, and they've heard him talking about the kingdom of God and about the wonders of the universe. They've heard Jesus talk about healing and community and hope in this life and in the next. And they come up to him and offer a question. This is pretty good a question. But here's one for you, Jesus. There was this guy, and using a paraphrase, which a good Sadducee should never do, because if God said it, that settles it, move on. They paraphrase Deuteronomy 25:5. And if you're a good Pharisee, you can't take God out of context. And so they take this absurd absurd argument, the idea of an afterlife. And okay, we're going to take this absurd argument and we're going to make it even more absurd. Absurder. There was this guy. He got married. Deuteronomy 25:5 says, if a man dies without a son, Sadducees change it to he dies childless. Ladies, is that a big deal? And they go on and take this absurd argument idea of an afterlife, a second life, eternal life. And they try to make it so absurd that Jesus would have to say, you're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Thank you for correcting my belief. Now, you know probably how well that goes in your daily life. I mean, how many times have you looked on something on Facebook and said, thank you for correcting my misconception? I mean, you're all rational people. But this idea that Jesus says, you're missing the point. You're missing the point of the Torah, the law, the words passed down through Moses. Because they were not given with the intent of making you do something or stopping you from doing something. They were given so that you might, maybe by your own initiative, maybe by God's prompting, maybe by the encouragement of the community, to come into harmony with God. That's the whole point of the Torah, is how do we, in this plane of existence, live in harmony with the divine will. So when Jesus says, people, like you know, are married, given in marriage, they pay taxes, they live, they breathe, they bake cookies, all the rest. Because that's what is needed here. But God is not limited to what you can see or touch. Now, we're all, I think, present and alive in the 21st century. Anybody want to raise a hand and say they're not alive? Or that you don't believe in the 21st century? You believe in gravity. Okay? You believe do you believe anything? Do you believe everything that someone tells you? Okay, I don't see any heads or hands. Maybe you're just too shocked. Maybe that's it. Maybe Jesus said something about this. Now, he is God not of the dead, but of the living. Okay? So, if God is the God of the living, is God real? Now, that may seem like a nonsensical question. You say, I wouldn't be here if God wasn't real. Well, some of you might be here because of Lori's piano playing. or you might be here because of Tim's trombone riffs. I'm still hoping that I can get him and Wally to do a little scat during Amazing Grace sometime. But that's not today. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living. So, we live in the 21st century. There's a lot of folks, a growing number in our own nation, who say that things like faith is nonsense. It's childish. It's incomplete thinking. Or if you were a rational, intelligent being, well, if God had given you a brain, what's that quote, Larry?
If I only had a brain?
That's a different illustration. A wise person once said, and I'll have to go back and try and figure out who it was, said that I refuse to believe in a God who gave a brain, maybe it's Galileo, someone like that, who gave you a brain and then forbids you to use it. This is what in the Wesleyan terminology, the quadrilateral, the idea of reason. Is it reasonable to believe in God? Is it reasonable to believe that there is someone in the entire cosmos that knows who you are, cares about you, and wants a relationship with you? I mean, who do you think you are? There are, 7 billion people on this planet? Who knows how many other life forms are out there in the cosmos that haven't even been conceived of? At least not to us. But if you're a rational person, if you can read these pages and come to a conclusion that this is true. Now, I'm not saying take it and hold it up as the Bible is the infallible word and every jot and tittle is true. In the Wesleyan context, we don't hold that. This is the inspired Word of God, but it is not the Word of God. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, I realize some of you are thinking, where can I get some pitch? I know I have feathers, but I don't have. The idea that here in this reading, we have what is on its surface an absurd ancient story. I mean, it's recorded in Luke, in Matthew, and in Mark. Slightly differently each time, but this gist of the story is there. Now, if we hold that Jesus of Nazareth, a flesh and blood man, walked into the temple, the second temple in Jerusalem, and had this discussion. If you can accept that as the truth, then can you also say, what he said, I don't have it all figured out. I don't know what heaven is going to look like. I don't know what the second life will be like. But Jesus says it's going to be recognizable, but nothing that I have ever experienced. If you can hold those two things in harmony, then when you come across a passage that just defies your rational thought, you would be able to say, there are some things I take on faith. There are some things that I flat out disagree with. seminary, they said the average Christian, the average person sitting here today, takes a third of this to be absolutely 100% true. A third you have already rejected. A third you're willing to negotiate, or at least hold intentions. Jesus is telling the Sadducees that day, you've already taken the hardest step into believing that there is a God. And that if you can say that there is a God, then to think that that God might want something for you or with you that you can't conceive of. The example they use here is marriage. Many of us have been married. How many of you have had a perfect marriage? I see a few wives nudging husbands. Okay. If you look at the idea of marriage, well, let's just say two people. If you look at that as this is an example of eternity, an example of God's will, would you be satisfied with that God? Looking at your spouse, would you say, if this is the best God can do, I'm glad Dylan's not here. If this is the best God can do, why would I want more of this? Why would I want an eternity of this? If, on the other hand, well, maybe you had a bad marriage. Some of us have been divorced. I have. I thought I was very happy until my wife told me I wasn't. And yet, when Belinda came into my life, I saw a depth of love that I did not know was possible. Now, early on, I realized in a discussion that we were having that why don't you make us both happy and do it your way? She says, now you get it. But then I come to this passage and I say, in the next life, it's not going to be like this. I remember I told Belinda once that a bad day with her is better than my best day alone. And she's reminding me of that. With bad marriage, or a wonderful marriage, both of those are seen as possibilities of hope, of what could be. When Jesus says, in the next life, what you have experienced here, no matter how good it was, it's just a drop in the bucket compared to how good it will be. So imagine the best day you've ever had. I mean, the best day. Now imagine that whatever it was or whoever it was that made that day so wonderful wasn't even in your conscious thought. What would it take to make your best day your second best day? What would you need or want or desire to raise up and say, I know this was you, God, showing off. Because when Jesus says to the Sadducees that day, you're missing the point. If you think this is about you, if you think religion, church, institution is why we were created and what will happen in the next life, you're missing the point. All the language that's used to describe the new heaven and the new earth, and the holy city coming out of a cloud, it's using language that we can understand. But we don't know. And faith that the God who gave you your best day, or was with you when you had your best day, has something even better in mind. I don't know what it is, but I sure can't wait to find out. But as the words of a song go, it has a refrain, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go right now. The point is, well, heaven's so great, let's go. You're still here. God is still here. And because God is still here and God is in love with you now, don't wait to share it. Don't wait to embrace God today. Because it would be such a shame if you had fallen in love. I mean, I'm looking at so many examples of love, of people who have grown together. Would you subtract half of those good days? Would you want to say, well, a good day with Tim, this is when you get sitting in the first pew. If I can have one good day, that's enough. No. Why on earth, while you're on earth, would you ever want less of God? So today, as we be ready to listen about the work of Eva, as we bring an offering before our God, as we share fellowship afterwards, don't go through this life halfway. Go all the way. Go with God. Be with God. Get ready. Something is coming. Amen.
I'd like to introduce you for our celebration of the ministry, Karen Kagiyama from EFA. And she's going to tell us a little bit about the wonderful work that they're doing there.
Thank you. So imagine a single mom sharing an 8x9 bedroom with her 5-year-old daughter and 3-year-old son. She just went through a pretty devastating divorce, had the kids 100% of the time, and unexpectedly lost her job. So in other words, family in crisis. So my name is Karen Kagiyama, and I've been volunteering at EFA for the last 6.5 years because I believe that a safety net for helping families in crisis is absolutely vital. But even more so, I care about this concept and notion of self-sufficiency. So unlike a lot of our other a lot of our clients at EFA, I was actually that family in crisis. And in addition to the support of my family, I had the ability to continue to build my career in the high-tech space as a leader so that I could get back on my feet and not only be self-sufficient, but thrive. Because I believe self-sufficiency is about human dignity, our ability to actually help ourselves. And in times of need, we need others to help us. And that's where your generosity over the years, helping support EFA and our clients, has had a measurable impact that you may not even begin to understand. From starting off with Easter egg hunts and supporting a family, to evolving how you support our community by taking the time to fill thousands of Easter eggs and create baskets that as a parent you can then go and host an Easter egg hunt for your kid, or stocking the family gift-giving room full of items that a parent can go and choose for their family. That not only impacts them from a financial perspective, but from an emotional and social and psychological perspective. Now, EFA's been around for over 100 years. And those first 95 years, we were laser focused on that safety net. In the last 5 years and moving forward, we wanted to not only think about that safety net, but we want to think about self-sufficiency. Our safety net to date has done things like the food bank that you're familiar with, or the shelter, the housing units that we have. The food bank in the last year served 1,535 families, over 4,000 individuals, the equivalent of $1.3 million worth of food, an average of 500 pounds of food per family. $840,000 of financial assistance to help cover basic needs, of which 88% went towards covering the cost of housing and related expenses. And the housing, we have short-term and transitional. The short-term housing are fully furnished apartments, of which we have 20, where they pay no rent, with the intent of helping them avoid homelessness. And the transitional housing is really about helping those families get into long-term affordable housing that they can do on their own. When I talk again about that safety net versus self-sufficiency, we want to springboard more people towards self-sufficiency. By self-sufficiency, I mean the ability to cover all your basic living expenses at a reasonable level. And that's different from helping raise people out of poverty. We talk about, we want to raise people out of poverty. You know what? It's not good enough. Because if you understand the definition of poverty, you would be shocked. So this was a guideline that was defined in 1962 based off of what they call a minimal food diet. And how much does that minimal food diet cost? So for a person of one, it's $12,490 a year before taxes. It's $86 a week for food. $693 a month to cover all the rest of your expenses. For a family of three, for my family of three, that number would be $21,330 a year. We'd have $148 before taxes. For food, $1,431 to cover all my other expenses. The average rent in Boulder, $2,500 a month. When we think about people who are below the poverty in Boulder County, 8.3% of all households are below that poverty line. If you now take it to what does it take for us to get into self-sufficiency, 28.3% of all households in Boulder County fall below the self-sufficiency guidelines. And when we think about raising people up to self-sufficiency, we also have to take into account that the fastest demographic or subpopulation within Boulder County that's growing is the aging population. So the people who are 60 years and above. Of those 60 years and above, already 7% of those individuals and families are below the poverty guidelines. Again, we're still not talking self-sufficiency. And the subpopulation underneath that, Fastest growing, 80 years and above. By the year 2050, we estimate that there will be a 244% increase in the number of people who are 80 years and older in Boulder County. So think about that. So we need to think about the people we're trying to raise up to self-sufficiency, but also make sure that for these folks who are fixed incomes, we keep them self-sufficient. So this is why your contributions and your giving matters. However you can choose to give. Even if it's just about letting more people know that EFA provides services not only in those crisis modes, but helping to make sure that you can gain self-sufficiency or retain self-sufficiency. So my ask to you is, well, first, again, thank you for your generous contributions. And my ask to you is just to continue to give in whatever way that you can so that together we rise up as a resilient and thriving community. So thank you.